In the late 1990s, an elderly man named Ronald Read died at the age of 92. He lived in a small town in the United States, quiet, modestly dressed, drove an old car, and no one ever suspected he had anything beyond a modest retirement. Ronald had spent his entire life working as a mechanic and later as a janitor at a department store. An ordinary man, invisible in the eyes of the elite. But when he died, he left behind a fortune of over $8 million. That's right. The entire world discovered that the old man from the parking lot was a silent millionaire. No luxury, no spotlight, just consistent decisions, patience, and a deep respect for money. Now, contrast that with another story from the same era. A young fund manager, charismatic, MBA from Harvard, earning 6 figures a month, a Manhattan apartment, helicopter rides, a wine cellar filled with rare bottles, visible success. But by the age of 37, he declared bankruptcy, drowning in debt. No savings, no plan. Everything that looked like wealth was, in truth, a sandcastle built on fragile beliefs and emotional decisions. What explains such a staggering difference? Luck? No. Intelligence? Not that either. The answer lies in something much deeper, in how each of them psychologically related to money. This isn't just a story about finances. It's a story about the way your brain silently sabotages your attempts to build wealth. Because here's the most terrifying truth. Your brain was not designed to make you rich.
It was shaped over millions of years to protect you, to keep you alive, to avoid risk. And the moment you begin to grow financially, something inside you triggers a primitive alarm, a deep resistance that makes you pull back, procrastinate, and self-sabotage. You want more, but your mind is programmed for less. This is the invisible origin of financial stagnation, the hidden root of why breaking the cycle is so hard. It's not the system. It's not a lack of opportunity. It's the silent war between who you are and who your brain still believes you should be. In this video, we're going to explore the forces that live inside you, the unconscious patterns, the emotional traps, and what happens when you fail to realize that the real prison is already installed inside your own mind. Welcome to CashPhrenia, where we investigate the darkest side of money, the psychology behind it. To understand why your brain hates getting rich, we need to go back in time, not just to a moment in your own life, but deep into the evolutionary history of the human species. Imagine we're 0 years in the past, in a world completely different from the one we live in today. There are no smartphones, no social media, no credit cards, only hunters and gatherers, trying to survive among wild predators in a hostile environment. In that world, the main goal of the human mind was survival, and surviving meant being cautious, avoiding risk, and maximizing immediate success. Humans who managed to stay safe and find food consistently had a better chance of passing on their genes. The brain was designed to avoid danger and make quick decisions to protect life. Now imagine that same human from 0 years ago suddenly faced with your reality today. A high-paying job offer, the chance to invest large amounts of money into assets that could build wealth, or even just the idea of taking a big financial risk to pursue a bold goal. How would their primitive brain respond? The answer is simple: total alarm. The human brain, trained for millennia to handle scarcity, insecurity, and constant danger, is not built to handle abundance. At its deepest level, it doesn't see wealth as something positive. It sees it as risky, unstable, and potentially dangerous. That's why, whenever you think about earning more money, a part of your brain goes into defense mode. It activates the areas responsible for anxiety, fear, and avoidance. Your brain reacts as if your life is in danger, and it's not doing this to sabotage you, it's simply doing what it was designed to do. But the real problem begins when you don't realize this is happening. Because even if you consciously want to succeed, your brain starts resisting your desire to grow. It believes automatically that change is dangerous, that the risk of prosperity is a threat to your survival. And it's not just a fear of failure, it's about avoiding the emotional pain that comes with any kind of transformation. Uncertainty, pressure, responsibility. That's why so many people procrastinate. That's why others give up before even trying. And that's why some, when they finally reach wealth, lose it quickly out of fear, or simply because they don't know how to handle that new reality. This internal resistance isn't your fault. It's an evolutionary glitch. Your brain is running on outdated software, not built for modern financial life. And while you keep fighting against it without realizing, the system stays stuck. In this video, we're going to explore how this conflict between the part of your brain that wants more and the part that fears success holds the key to understanding what's really happening inside you, why it's so hard to achieve financial freedom, and what you can do to reprogram your mind and overcome this psychological barrier. Because on this journey, you'll discover the real battle for wealth isn't happening in the stock market, in business opportunities, or in luck. It's happening within you, in what your brain is telling you without you even noticing. If you looked at Marcus Keller in 2017, you'd think he was living the dream. A 27-year-old tech entrepreneur in Austin, Texas, son of a blue-collar single mom, the kind of kid who grew up learning how to stretch every dollar, who wore hand-me-downs, who knew what it meant to say, "We can't afford that." But Marcus was different, always ambitious, always questioning why some people got out and others stayed stuck. He started young flipping phones on Craigslist, selling limited sneakers on eBay, doing odd freelance jobs in coding. In college, he dropped out after his sophomore year, bored and frustrated. He didn't want to learn how to get a job. He wanted to build something of his own, and he did. At 24, Marcus created a productivity app that took off fast, the kind of viral overnight story people love to romanticize. It hit the front page of Product Hunt, got picked up by a few tech influencers, and within months he had thousands of paying users. Revenue snowballed. Venture capital followed. By 26, Marcus had scaled the company to $2.5 million in annual recurring revenue. He moved into a modern condo downtown, bought a Tesla, Moon, DOS, and began speaking at startup events. His Instagram looked like a success reel: rooftop dinners, tech conferences, luxury getaways. But what no one saw was what was happening under the surface. Marcus had grown up in survival mode. His brain was trained since childhood to operate in scarcity, to fear instability, to equate having money with something temporary, something dangerous. And now that he had money, a lot of it, his subconscious didn't see safety. It saw a threat. He started to feel intense anxiety. He couldn't sleep. He felt a constant sense of pressure to keep it going. Every small setback, a churn spike, a bad review felt catastrophic. Instead of enjoying the success, he began to sabotage it. He overhired, spent impulsively, outsourced key operations to friends he couldn't manage, avoided looking at financial reports. The app became buggy, support tickets piled up, and instead of facing the issues, Marcus retreated. He began spending his days watching motivational videos and telling himself that it's just a rough patch. Psychologists call this threshold anxiety, when a person hits a level of success beyond what their nervous system perceives as familiar or safe, and the body goes into a state of internal resistance. Your rational mind may say, "We made it." But your emotional system whispers, "This isn't me." Marcus grew up hearing phrases like, "Money doesn't grow on trees," "Rich people are shady," "People like us don't get ahead." He didn't realize it, but those beliefs were still driving the bus. According to Dr. Gay Hendricks, author of The Big Leap, every person has an internal upper limit, an unconscious ceiling of how much success, love, or abundance we believe we're allowed to have. When we exceed that, we unconsciously find ways to fall back below it. Marcus had hit that ceiling. His nervous system wasn't wired for wealth. It was wired for survival. And survival meant stress, chaos, struggle. That was home. So when things became calm, abundant, and full of possibility, his subconscious panicked. It interpreted growth as danger. It needed to bring him back to where it felt normal, back to a level of struggle his mind could process. This is the dark side of sudden success. If your mind hasn't expanded, your results won't last. And this is where most stories that start like Marcus's begin to fall apart. Not because of lack of talent, not because of poor business strategy, but because the human brain, untouched by deep emotional work, will always return to what it knows. Marcus wasn't reckless. He wasn't stupid. He wasn't lazy. He was simply playing out a script that had been written for him long before he earned his first dollar. And he didn't even know it was happening. This is what happens when money outruns mindset. It didn't happen all at once. That's the most dangerous thing about a downward spiral. It's quiet, subtle. It creeps in through the cracks you chose not to look at. For Marcus, the first real crack appeared on a Tuesday morning. A server outage. Thousands of users locked out of the app. Emails piling up. Angry tweets. He told his team not to worry, we'll fix it. But it took 4 days to stabilize, and by then, word had spread. Customer churn doubled. His biggest corporate client pulled out. Revenue dropped 28% in 2 weeks. Still, Marcus told himself it was just a bump. Every startup goes through turbulence, he repeated. But he didn't cut costs, didn't address the team's concerns, didn't scale back spending. In fact, he doubled down, launched an ambitious new feature, hired more staff, expanded office space, because facing the truth would mean confronting a deeper fear that maybe he wasn't as in control as he thought. That's when the panic attacks began. They came at night, out of nowhere. Tight chest, racing heart, a sense of doom he couldn't explain. He started avoiding meetings, ignoring emails, watching his calendar fill up with calls he had no intention of attending. This is what psychologists call self-withdrawal under stress, the nervous system's response to emotional overwhelm. Instead of solving problems, the brain goes into shutdown mode. And for Marcus, this wasn't laziness. It was his brain protecting him from a perceived existential threat. Because in his subconscious, success had become the threat. See, Marcus never learned how to hold abundance. He learned how to chase it. Once he had it, once he made it, his entire sense of identity was thrown into chaos. His inner child, the one raised on scarcity and fear, didn't trust the wealth. It didn't feel safe. So the mind did what it had been trained to do. Return to survival mode. That meant overspending, avoiding responsibilities, sabotaging the structure that was keeping him stable. By the end of 2020, Marcus's company had lost 60% of its users. Investors were calling daily. His CTO resigned. A legal notice arrived over a data security violation, something he could have prevented if he hadn't ignored the earlier warnings. He was spiraling. And then came the moment that changed everything. One Friday morning, Marcus woke up to an email from his bank. Account overdrawn. Despite making over $2.5 million in the prior year, he had burned through every dollar. No runway, no savings, no team, no product roadmap. The company was dead, just like that. Marcus moved out of his condo the following week, sold his Tesla, deleted his social media accounts, moved back into a guest room at his mom's house in Pflugerville. The press stopped calling, friends stopped texting, and for the first time in years, he was completely alone. But here's where the real fall begins. It wasn't financial, it was psychological. Marcus fell into a state that psychologists refer to as learned helplessness, when someone experiences repeated failures or losses and begins to believe that no effort will make a difference. It's the mindset that turns, "I failed," into, "I'm a failure." He stopped trying, stopped dreaming. He'd open his laptop, stare at a blank screen, and feel a wave of disgust. Not at the code, but at himself. He told himself things like, "I peaked. That was a fluke. I don't deserve a second chance. I'm not built for success." These weren't just negative thoughts. They were beliefs, rooted in trauma, reinforced by culture, and confirmed by the painful experience of losing everything. And the most twisted part? There was a part of him that felt relief. No more pressure, no more expectations, no more pretending to be someone he didn't believe he was. The brain seeks familiarity, even if that familiarity is painful. This is why so many people rise and fall in cycles. Why lottery winners go broke. Why once successful founders end up stuck in self-doubt for years. Because when success arrives faster than your nervous system can adjust, your mind will tear it down just to feel normal again. Marcus had joined the ranks of people who didn't just fail financially, they failed psychologically. Not because they weren't smart, not because they weren't talented, but because no one ever taught them how to feel safe having more. That's the hidden cost of success. Marcus spent months in a kind of emotional limbo. He wasn't broke in the literal sense. He could still eat, still shower, still scroll through Twitter, but mentally, he was bankrupt. No vision, no momentum, just shame. Overwhelming, paralyzing shame. It's what psychologists call a self-concept collapse. When the identity you built, the entrepreneur, the high achiever, the winner, disintegrates, and what's left is silence, confusion, self-loathing. At night, he replayed old interviews where he spoke like a visionary. By day, he barely left his room. The messages from old colleagues dried up. His phone didn't ring. Time blurred. Days melted into weeks. Then, something strange happened. One morning, Marcus's mom left a book outside his door. It was The Psychology of Money. He didn't want to read it, but boredom and curiosity eventually won out. And within a few pages, a sentence hit him like a punch. Doing well with money has little to do with how smart you are, and a lot to do with how you behave. That sentence cracked something open, because Marcus had always believed that success was about being smart enough, working hard enough, building fast enough. But he had never, not once, questioned his behavior with money. Why he spent compulsively, why he avoided financial planning, why he tied his self-worth to revenue. He began researching, obsessively, psychology, neuroscience, trauma, behavioral economics. It was like discovering a language he'd always spoken but never understood. And what he found was this: he wasn't broken, he was conditioned. From childhood, Marcus had internalized beliefs about money that shaped every decision he made. I have to prove my worth through success. If I fail, I'll be rejected. If I have too much, I'll lose it. These aren't just thoughts, they are neural pathways, formed by repetition and reinforced by emotion. The brain doesn't separate emotional memory from objective truth. If you've experienced financial insecurity or shame growing up, those memories wire your nervous system to associate money with danger. This is called emotional imprinting, and it governs far more of your behavior than logic ever will. Marcus realized he'd made a fundamental psychological error. He tried to change his external reality without addressing his internal wiring. And so, like millions of others, he ran into his own mental ceiling. Not because he lacked skill, but because his identity wasn't aligned with abundance. According to Stanford psychologist, people operate under two primary mindsets. A fixed mindset, where your traits and abilities are static and effort is threatening. A growth mindset, where you believe you can evolve, adapt, and rewire. Marcus had the first one, masked by the language of the second. He said things like, "I'm always learning," but inside, he was terrified of being seen as inadequate. He had built a version of success that required constant performance, and when the performance slipped, so did his sense of self. This is the paradox of modern success. We chase wealth to feel safe, but if we don't feel safe without it, we'll never keep it. The deeper Marcus dove into behavioral science, the more he saw his past not as a string of bad decisions, but as predictable consequences of unexamined beliefs. He wasn't irresponsible, he was running an outdated operating system, and if that was true, maybe it could be updated. That became the mission. He started therapy not to fix himself, but to understand himself. He learned about trauma response, attachment patterns, and somatic regulation. He practiced meditation, cold exposure, journaling. He wrote down the scripts he had inherited and began consciously rewriting them. From "Success isn't safe" to "I can create safety within myself, no matter what I earn." From "I'll never recover from failure" to "Failure is information, not identity." Bit by bit, the shame lifted, the noise quieted. He didn't rebuild the business overnight, but he began building himself from the inside out. And this time, he wasn't just chasing numbers. He was creating the psychological foundation to actually hold them. Marcus didn't rebuild his company. At least, not in the way he once imagined. He didn't raise another round of funding, or launch another flashy startup, or give a triumphant TED Talk. Instead, he rebuilt something far more foundational: his internal relationship with money. And here's the truth. He discovered a truth most people never hear. You don't lose wealth because of bad luck. You lose it because your mind was never prepared to hold it. The rise and fall of Marcus wasn't about business strategy. It was about psychological infrastructure. When your self-worth is tied to achievement, every success becomes fragile. When your nervous system is wired for scarcity, abundance feels like a threat. And when you ignore your emotional patterns, they don't disappear, they run the show. But this isn't just about Marcus. This is about you. Right now, you might be working harder than ever, learning everything you can about investing, entrepreneurship, side hustles, and still, something inside you resists, procrastinates, quits early, spends impulsively, sabotages opportunities. You think it's discipline, or motivation, or bad luck. But maybe it's protection. Maybe your brain, designed to keep you alive, sees wealth as risk, as exposure, as danger. Because for most of human history, staying small was safer. Being invisible meant survival. Our ancestors didn't evolve to seek growth. They evolved to avoid pain. And unless you update that internal code, you'll keep running into the same invisible wall. Here's what you can do to start breaking that cycle. 1. Expose your beliefs. Write down every phrase you heard about money growing up. Question them. Who told you? Were they wealthy? Did they feel safe? 2. Redefine what wealth means to you. Not as status, not as ego, but as freedom, time, choice, impact. 3. Normalize abundance emotionally. Visualize it. Talk about it. Spend time with people who already have it, not for comparison, but for calibration. Teach your nervous system that it's safe to expand. 4. Practice small acts of control. Budgeting, saving, investing small amounts. Each action sends a signal to your brain. We are safe. We are capable. 5. Detach self-worth from net worth. Who you are is not what you own. Repeat that until it lands. Most people try to earn their way out of insecurity. But if you don't heal the root, the patterns will follow you no matter how much you make. Marcus learned that too late for his first success, but not too late for his life, and neither is it for you. Marcus didn't rebuild his company. At least, not in the way he once imagined. He didn't raise another round of funding, or launch another flashy startup, or give a triumphant TED Talk. Instead, he rebuilt something far more foundational, his internal relationship with money. And here's the truth, he discovered a truth most people never hear. You don't lose wealth because of bad luck. You lose it because your mind was never prepared to hold it. The rise and fall of Marcus wasn't about business strategy. It was about psychological infrastructure. When your self-worth is tied to achievement, every success becomes fragile. When your nervous system is wired for scarcity, abundance feels like a threat. And when you ignore your emotional patterns, they don't disappear, they run the show. But this isn't just about Marcus. This is about you. Right now, you might be working harder than ever, learning everything you can about investing, entrepreneurship, side hustles, and still something inside you resists, procrastinates, quits early, spends impulsively, sabotages opportunities. You think it's discipline, or motivation, or bad luck. But maybe it's protection. Maybe your brain, designed to keep you alive, sees wealth as risk, as exposure, as danger. Because for most of human history, staying small was safer. Being invisible meant survival. Our ancestors didn't evolve to seek growth, they evolved to avoid pain. And unless you update that internal code, you'll keep running into the same invisible wall. Here's what you can do to start breaking that cycle. 1. Expose your beliefs. Write down every phrase you heard about money growing up. Question them. Who told you? Were they wealthy? Did they feel safe? 2. Redefine what wealth means to you. Not as status, not as ego, but as freedom, time, choice, impact. 3. Normalize abundance emotionally. Visualize it. Talk about it. Spend time with people who already have it, not for comparison, but for calibration. Teach your nervous system that it's safe to expand. 4. Practice small acts of control, budgeting, saving, investing small amounts. Each action sends a signal to your brain. We are safe. We are capable. 5. Detach self-worth from net worth. Who you are is not what you own. Repeat that until it lands. Most people try to earn their way out of insecurity, but if you don't heal the root, the patterns will follow you no matter how much you make. Marcus learned that too late for his first success, but not too late for his life. And neither is it for you. If any part of the story felt uncomfortably familiar, if you've ever made money and lost it, if you've ever sabotaged your own progress and couldn't explain why, if you've ever felt like your brain was fighting against your own success, then you're not alone. And, more importantly, you're not broken. You're running on wiring that wasn't built for this world. But wiring can be changed, beliefs can be rewritten, and your relationship with money can be healed. So here's what we want to know. What's one belief about money you were taught as a child and are now working to unlearn? Drop it in the comments. Let's create a space where talking about wealth isn't taboo and neither is talking about fear. Because here at CashPhrenia, we don't just talk about making money. We talk about what money does to your mind, to your identity, to your sense of safety, and to your future. And we believe the most powerful form of wealth isn't just in your bank account, it's in your brain. So if this video resonated with you, consider subscribing, not for tips and hacks, but for real conversations about the invisible side of wealth, the side no one talks about. Because the more you understand your mind, the more freedom you'll create, inside and out.